Okay, and now my mic's up, so I can put that back out. Okay. So, once again, welcome to Buttpluggin with qDot. It is me, qDot, and today I will be coding a simple toy control Teledildonics app. And showing everyone how to do that. So this is going to happen on the glitch.com website. Once I get that project up, I'll be showing everyone, or I'll be giving everyone the URL in the chat so you can actually watch as I code it live in real time. That'll be pretty fun. And other than that, once we get that built, then in part 4, which is going to happen sometime probably in the next week, I'll be adding network control to that. So as you can control your own toy, you'll be able to control someone else's too, or they'll be able to control yours. And from that basis, then we will build some like in Teledildonics 201, which is going to be the next series I do after this. We'll work with some game APIs, some services, things like that, to add on to what we built here and hook it into, say, Telegram or Discord, or get it working with movies or audio sync or all sorts of things. So this kind of works as an experimental basis for projects going forward. So without further ado, let's just kick things off with just a few recaps of what's happened in the past couple of episodes. I was about half set up here when I was ready to go, so this is going to take just a minute. Okay, there we are. And my PowerPoint window. There we go. Good. Okay, so welcome to Teledildonics 101 Part 3. Just a quick recap of what this is and who I am. First off, hi, I am Kyle Mishulis, also known as qDot, founder of Non-Polynomial Labs, a little company that just does sex tech design and consulting. I am the project lead of Buttplug, which is the library we're going to be using today to access all sorts of sex toys. And I do a bunch of other stuff too that I'm not going to go into because I want to get to the coding. This is the Teledildonics 101 video series. This is part 3. Part 4 will be, like I said, coming up next week or so. And that will be it for 101. And then 201 is going to be, I don't know how many series. I may not even call it 201 because it's just going to go on forever. It's basically going to be my YouTube channel from now on. So, what we're going to do, what we've done in the past couple of episodes of this is learned about what Teledildonics is, how you design for it, things like that. And going forward, we are going to be building an app and then building networks on top of that app so people can control each other's toys, and then we'll be done, and then we'll go on. Everything I'm doing now is going to be on the web, so it's going to be all HTML and JavaScript today. However, Buttplug exists in multiple languages, so it's not just JavaScript. In fact, JavaScript is like one of the smallest implementations of it. We've got stuff in C#, we've got stuff in the JavaScript is actually written in TypeScript. I'm working on re-implementing everything in Rust, which is going to become our core implementation. But you can still use a whole bunch of different languages on top of that Rust stuff. It also works with Python and Go. The goal is to work with whatever language people want to use. So we want to make sure that if you have a tool you like or some sort of system you want to use it with, use sex toys with, you can do it as easily as possible, and happy to help in whatever direction I need to for that. All the videos in this series are Creative Commons licensed with an attribution and share alike clause. There is no non-commercial clause, so you can show these anywhere you want. They are currently only archived on YouTube. I will be moving them also to Pornhub and the Internet Archive and possibly Vimeo, because who knows how long YouTube is going to let me broadcast with gigantic butt plug images on the screen. So want to make sure that the stuff stays up until the end of time. And There will also be slides and notes at buttplug.io/videos. I have not actually had time to put anything on that site yet, so it is mostly blank at the moment, but hopefully within the next few days I will get the first video links up, as well as links to the slides and some of the materials that I've mentioned. And just a second, I'm going to turn off a fan that is going behind me. Okay, eliminate some room noise there. Okay, if you want to get a hold of me, this is the way to do, or these are the ways to do it. I have 3 Twitter accounts, qDot, buttplug.io, and metafetish. So all of those are basically mirroring each other these days. qDot's my personal account. Buttplug.io is mostly about the buttplug library. Metafetish is for the blog that I ostensibly still run, but I haven't updated in years. I have a Discord server for Buttplug, has over 1,000 members on it. People talking about building their own toys, lots of eSTEM talk. This is where I do a lot of the development discussion with other engineers that are working on Buttplug. There's a Telegram channel that is basically full of shit-posting furries, but if that's your thing, there you go. You can get many stickers of cartoon animals getting shocked there. There's a few GitHub accounts and organizations that are used in this project. There's my personal one, qDot. The Buttplug.io organization has all of the libraries for Buttplug. And the interface organization has all of our applications like Interface Desktop and the Game Haptics Router. I'll be talking about Interface Desktop more today. Finally, I do have a Patreon. While we are in this crisis and there are people that are not working, please donate to them first. Tip your service workers and gig workers as much as you possibly can. However, if you are in the adult industry or in sex tech or interested in that stuff, I do write a newsletter that goes out to my patrons usually every week. That kind of gives you an idea of what I'm doing, what's happening in the industry, things like that. And I also at some tiers I'm available for personal consulting. So if that is an actual interest for you, that would be where you go for my Patreon. And I believe that's pretty much it for that. We can go over what we've talked about in the past couple of lectures real quick. Part 1, I did a history of Teledildonics, just talking about where the term came from, what toys have been around in the past 25, 30 years. And then went over a framework for analyzing Teledildonic app design. So when we start talking about user design for Teledildonics, what are all of the interfaces that are happening there? In part 2, I talked a little bit more about that framework and how to design the app that we're going to be building today using that framework, and then went over an overview of architecture for Buttplug. So all the terms that I'm going to be using today while coding this, of like a Buttplug server, Buttplug client, device, message, things like that. That's all talked about in that video. Both of these are already up on YouTube. You can watch them at your leisure. It's a little over 3 hours of content already, because apparently I'm a chatty fucker. So, yeah. And that is it for the slides. So let's get over to what it is we're going to build. So today we're going to be building a way to easily control 3 different types of toys, or well, at least 3 different types of motion that certain toys can provide. Buttplug has this abstraction of, instead of just saying like, well, I have a Levin's toy and this Levin's toy can do these things, all it knows is like, I have a toy that can vibrate, or I have a toy that can rotate. And that's what we're going to be setting up today. So for instance, these 2 toys right here, there's a Levin's Edge and a Levin's Lush. Those are both vibrators. This has one vibrator in it. This actually has two that are individually controllable. There's also things like the Levin's Nora, which it has a vibrator in it, and then, wait, no, this turns and this vibrates. So that's two different types of motion right there. And then there's the fleshlight launch right here. This moves a fleshlight up and down. And if I would have been planning, I would have had a fleshlight on my desk already. But I don't. So you can trust me for right now that if I were to put a fleshlight in this, it will move up and down. And I will get a fleshlight later. So we want to be able to control all of these toys in a fairly simple way. By the way, if you are watching this and you have any questions at any time, please feel free to ask in the YouTube chat or direct message me on Twitter, and I will try to keep an eye out. You may have to wait a little bit because I'm watching multiple screens right now, but happy to answer any questions at pretty much any time. So the app that we're going to be kind of mimicking here is something I built called Playground. Buttplug Playground is sort of our test application for new toys when we're building Buttplug. And so what it does, you aren't going to be able to see it right here. It's a little... let me see if... Okay, yeah, you can't actually see it, but there is a Bluetooth scanning dialog that comes up when I hit start scanning. This just has to do with how OBS picks up the render. Is it going to yell about the... Okay, yeah, web Bluetooth is kind of an issue. But just to show you kind of how Buttplug Playground works and what we're going to be ripping off from it, I'll start scanning again, and here it should find the Lush. So if I choose that, then now we get this little slider bar here that will set things to different speeds. If I turn on the Nora, there it goes, and bring the menu back up and start scanning again, then we can see that the Nora comes up and we have vibration control as well as rotation because it can do two things. If I move back over here, so here's me turning on the vibration. You can kind of, there, you can kind of hear it. And then if I turn on rotation, there it goes. And then if I close that window, in a second, everything should stop moving. Okay, well, Nora keeps moving if it disconnects. That's kind of interesting. But the Lush stopped vibrating, and, well, the launch is just kind of interesting. So anyways, that's what we're going to be building. However, Playground is built in a combination of fairly complicated technologies. It was written using TypeScript. It uses Vue.js for its GUI, and all in all, it's kind of complicated. What I really want to do is provide people with the bare minimum needed to control their toys in pure HTML and JavaScript ES6. So that's what we're going to build today. If you want to get fancier with that and use React or Vue or Ember or Angular or something like that to build yourself a nicer app, great. You'll have the app we build today as a template to work from there. And another thing that I will say, what we're going to build today will mostly only work in Chrome. I'm not super thrilled about that, but Firefox, we're going to be using Web Bluetooth, and that only exists in Google Chrome. Unfortunately, Firefox has not implemented that and possibly won't be for the foreseeable future. So this just makes life a little bit easier. I'll be talking about how we can run this under Firefox. You can have Firefox connect to an outside application called Interface Desktop that I also build. Basically, it will export all of the Bluetooth functionality out to the operating system. But for now, we want to keep things simple. So this will be in Chrome for right now. And if you're interested in this app too, but you don't have a sex toy, that's not going to be a complete limitation, because while I was planning for this last night, I got a new piece of hardware working. And that piece of hardware is the Xbox controller. So it turns out that web browsers, or at least once again Chrome, are trying to implement every piece of hardware under the sun from web technologies. There are certainly people with feelings about that, but for us it's good because it means we can access a lot of different sex toys from the browser. There's nothing to download. There's all sorts of security and trust questions there, and I'm going to ignore those right now because it's making my life easier here. So there is haptics for web gamepads, and you can actually just make a gamepad vibrate from the browser now. So if I bring Playground back up here and come back to our web browser screen, now I have to do like the special thing where I actually press a button while the Bluetooth dialog is up. It's kind of weird, but now you can see we have web gamepad here, and we can either control all of its motors, or its weak motor, or its strong motor. And sure enough, if I do this, you can hear it banging against my desk now. So even if you don't have a sex toy, but you want to play with Buttplug, you can just use a vibrating gamepad, anything that works with Chrome. And I'm doing all of this on Windows 10 right now too. I don't know how well this works on Mac and Linux. I didn't actually try it there because I didn't have a lot of time, but it might work there too. Web Bluetooth itself, if you are using an actual sex toy, does work on Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, and iOS if you use a very special browser. I may show that either at the end of this video or as part of the networking one. Okay, so we have talked about what it is, like the functionality of what it is we're building. What is our HTML thing going to look like? Because there's only so much we can do in HTML unless we like really customize the style sheets and whatnot. And I don't want to do that. When I say pure HTML and JavaScript, notice there's no CSS in there. I really suck at CSS, and I don't want to be seen having to code it live. So we're going to be using as little in terms of complicated UI as possible. I've gone ahead and wireframed some of this in Ligma, and let's bring that up now. Okay, so this is what our app is going to look like. So we'll just have a title of Simple Teledildonics app, so we'll know what it is. The Start Scanning button right here will actually start the scanning process for both Bluetooth and gamepads. So you'll click this, and when we come up to, we're not going to be able to see any of these things. So when we start the app, it's actually going to look a little more like this. So this is all we'll see when we come up. And we'll hit Start Scanning. And then if we find a toy, great. So we'll find a toy, we'll connect to it, and suddenly it'll show up here. And it'll say, okay, I found, like, say, your Levin's Hush, which is Levin's butt plug. And you will be able to control its vibration speed using a slider. So then, due to the way Web Bluetooth works, we can only find one device at a time that way. So if I hit start scanning again, and I have my Vors A10 Cyclone, which is... that is this chunky boy right here. This is basically, it makes an Ona hole rotate back and forth like you stick a latex tube or a silicone tube in it, and it'll rotate it back and forth around a penis, and it's think of it like the rotating version of the fleshlight launch. So it's a rotating toy, so we can see that with that we can change the rotation speed. Now, notice that our little slider here starts in the middle. That's because with a rotation speed, we're going to be able to want to rotate in either direction. So what we can do is just call the middle 0 there, and then the left side of it will be one direction, the right side of it will be another. Where vibration is just not going at all to vibrating as fast as possible. Finally, if I were to hook up the fleshlight launch to this, that's when we're going to bring up our linear movement options. So linear movement's a little weird because with vibration, you can click around on the speed, kind of make a pattern, something like that. Rotation, same thing. But if you don't click, it's just going to keep going at the same speed. It's going to, like, your vibrator's going to keep vibrating at the same speed that you set it at. Your rotating toy is going to rotate at the same speed. With linear, it has to stop somewhere. So what we actually have to make here is a pattern generator versus just a simple value setter. So the 3 sliders here allow you to set the minimum position to move to, the maximum position to move to, and the amount of time it takes to move to those positions. So the lower the amount of time, the faster and the wider the gap, the faster the thing is going to move. And then we'll have a checkbox down here that will actually start that oscillation. So you can set up all of your parameters and then only oscillate once those are done. So this is what our UI is going to look like. This is the interface that we are going to build today. And with that, let's go over to Glitch. So I'm going to start a new project here, and we're just going to, this is just going to be a client-side web page. This needs no server access at all. This is an HTML and JavaScript file that you could load locally. So let me change the name of the project, and then I will paste the URL into the YouTube chat, and you can follow along there. So we'll call this Teledildonics 101 Part 3 app. Okay. And app has 2 P's in it. And for description, whoops. Okay, so there we go. And the link is now in the YouTube channel, so if you would like to join and watch me type, you can do that. So we'll start by building a HTML version of our Figma layout here. And what we can do is, once we get all of this built, just in the pure HTML, then we can just copy and paste it and use it as a template string in JavaScript. I don't really want to go through and have to create every single element in JavaScript. That would take forever, and it would really be slow, and it would mean a massive amount of boilerplate. Usually with React, we would have JSX or TSX templates. With Vue, we would have our multi-component templates. But we're in pure HTML once again, so not so much we can do there, but we'll just use JavaScript's template strings for that. So let's go ahead and move over here. So I can actually bring up my application next to my code window here in Glitch. For those of you that are not familiar, by the way, Glitch is an amazing tool. So this is the company that used to be Fog Creek. So for those of you that know Joel Splasky, he made Fogbugs, and Stack Overflow was part of Stack Overflow and whatnot. This is their new product that allows you to collaborate online with whoever you want. It's great for building web applications. You can build back-end applications too in Node, and it will actually let you run your server. And they are going to be moving soon to allowing you to actually host your server on Glitch. So you can both develop it and host it there, like you would say Heroku or something like that. That service is in beta right now. So I'm a huge fan of Glitch. It's a really cool community, a really cool product. So now we'll be sitting in it for a couple of hours too. So first off, let's we're fine with all of our meta character sets and setups. We'll call this simple buttplug.js toy control app. So there we go. We're not actually going to need the style sheet, but I'm just going to leave it there anyways. Glitch is not a Glitch is not a software, it's a service. If you go to glitch.com, that's where you can get it, but it's a free service. So you can just sign up for an account, or you can use GitHub or something like that. And so, yeah, you can just check it out on the web. It is a purely web-based service. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do, and this is a little, this is specific to Buttplug and how it has to run. We need to make sure that whoever is visiting our website is doing so through HTTPS. Web Bluetooth requires a secure context. Now, every domain and every app that is created on Glitch can be used under a secure context, so you can access it through https:// But we need to make sure that's happening. Otherwise, Web Bluetooth just won't come up for us. So to do that, we just need to write a little bit of JavaScript here. So So we'll just look at the URL here, and if it is not HTTP, if it doesn't start with HTTPS, we will just go ahead and actually I can just turn, whoa, wrong one. Here we go. We can make it start with HTTPS. Window location, href, yeah. String, and then. Okay, so what we're doing here is we want to take our URL and add HTTPS to it, to the front, and then remove everything that was on the front of it and paste it to that HTTPS. And then since we're setting location.href to that, we'll reload the page at that time. Yeah, so, and for those just asked in chat, yeah, I do develop my own software and programs. Right now, what we're showing off is how to use one of the sex toy design apps or design libraries that are sex toy control and design libraries that I build to actually control a sex toy. So we're starting here with making sure we're at the right place, and then we have a script, and we're just gonna blow away all of our body here, so we don't really need any of that. See, doing a quick social media check here, see if anyone said anything. They haven't. So getting back to our code. Okay, so if I was to load this now, so if I open a new tab or if I just, go to new window, so you can see this shows up as HTTPS. If I delete that and try to go to it again, now it has, okay, there we go. It has now redirected me to, it will always redirect to secure. That's what we wanted to do. Great. Okay. So now we want to start filling this in here. So if we look at our Figma again, we wanted simple Teledildonics app here. So that's easy. We just make an H1, simple Teledildonics app. No big deal. And sure enough, there we go. It's in blue italics because that's what the default style gives you. I'm just going to leave it. And now we, so one of the elements that's always going to, well, the one element that's always going to be there right now is the start scanning button. So we don't need to create that with JavaScript. We can just create that right now. So we need to set up a button, and we'll call it the buttplug local button, because this means connect and scan locally, and we'll just have it say start scanning, because that's exactly what it's going to do, and that's all it's ever going to do. We'll call this start local connection. So whenever we click on this button, we'll call start local connection, which will exist over in our script file here in a second. Now we're going to need a place to put all of this stuff. Like, we don't want to just attach that to the bottom of the document. It would be good to have a container to put these things in as they appear from finding toys in Buttplug. So let's make a div. And we just need to call that div something, so we'll call it device list. Okay, and so now we have the beginnings of our app. We have our button, and we have a place to put our toy controls once we figure out where those toys are. Now let's go over to our script. So there's not much going on here. Oh, one other thing I need to do. I said I was going to do this without libraries when I was talking on Twitter, but there's obviously one library I'm going to need, and that library is Buttplug. So let's go ahead and load the Buttplug library. This happens... okay, I'm just going to copy and paste this out of my notes. So anytime that I create a new release of the Buttplug.js library, that library is compiled both for Node and for the web, and is added to multiple different CDNs. So you can just reference the CDN the version on this CDN here. 0.12.3 is the version that I released last night with gamepad support. So that's how you load Buttplug. It is, for those of you that want to get fancy, it is compiled. I believe. Let me check real quick. With here, I'll add my webcam back here. Packages, buttplug. Have to. Nothing like having to look at a webpack config while I'm on camera. Okay, yes, it is compiled with UMD, so you can load it as an ES6 module, or you can just use a global. I usually just use a global because I am lazy as hell. So whenever you load this library, it exposes a buttplug, capital B, global that you can use to access all of the buttplug.js library. And while we are talking about that too, if you're interested in buttplug.js, the code itself is at github.com/buttplugio/buttplug.js-js. It's a multi-repo right now. I don't know how much longer that's going to last because I'm planning on killing all the node libraries once the Rust implementation comes in, and then we're just going to build even the JavaScript on top of the Rust. But the big part that you'll actually care about is the main buttplug library itself. That's going to stick around for a while because buttplug or Rust plus WASM plus buttplug, that's gonna take a while. That's gonna be a difficult problem. So we'll still have buttplug.js for a little while, and it's worth looking through. The other thing that's going to be important there, and that we will be using today, because I will constantly forget the API, there's API documentation. So even though I wrote the damn thing, I hardly remember what it is I wrote. So this is all generated out of typedoc, but it's usable for the JavaScript. So, like, for instance, we'll be talking to buttplug client devices later, and this has all of the functions and stuff that they support. Great. So back to coding. Okay, let me also, people have asked me to increase the font size, so I can do that. There you go. I think that'll be a little bit easier for everyone to read. I forgot that I'm running at 4K and then reducing it for 1080p stream. So there you go. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to read. Okay. We need to, oh wait, no, I was going to, before I start that, actually create some, like, what this is going to look like when it's done. So let's say we've found one of those Levens devices. If we want to make it look like Figma here, let's try to make this Levens block right here in pure HTML, and then we can use that as a template later. So we'll call it div. Oh yeah, I forgot that. Auto completes my tags for me. Levens v11. And okay, that's what we want there. And then we're going to need another div, and we'll call this, and we'll have that as h2 vibrate. And then we're going to want an input there of type range min 0 max 100. We'll want to start it at 0. And we're going to want to give it an ID of some kind. We'll just, like, each device, when we get it, is going to be assigned an index. It's just a number, like 0, 1, 2, 3. It starts at 0 and moves forward. Assuming you ever connect 4 billion devices to Buttplug, you may have a problem. But hopefully no one's going to be connecting 4 billion Buttplugs to a computer. So we will just call that, oh wait, input's self-closing, I believe, but whatever. So we'll just call the ID of this vibrate 0, and once we're actually back in JavaScript, whenever we move this slider around, it's going to do, like, we'll assign something to that event in JavaScript. But this is kind of how we want this to look. Oh, wait, no, we want it to have I think over in Figma, yeah, so we have this part done and this part done. We don't have this, though. So we're going to want to label for vibrate 0. That just says vibration or vibrate speed. What did I call it? Vibration speed. Okay, so this is looking a lot like this so far, and that is good. Now, nice part about this is our rotation is mostly the same here, so we should just be able to copy and paste. And now we can call this a ton cyclone SA. This will now be a rotation block, and trying to move my OBS window somewhere more useful here. And really all we got to change here is our ID first off, because we don't want it the same ID as vibration speed. And then, since we want this to be able to move back and forth this way, to switch directions, we'll want to have our min to be -100, max to be 100 and 0. And now, yeah, that's going to be that, that's going to be that. Okay. So it would probably be nice, too, to reflect what the value is, like next to the tag or something. I may try to add that in JavaScript real quick here in a bit. Finally, so we are still looking exactly like this. This part was pretty easy. This part sucks. So now let's call this flashlight launch. Our movement type will be linear. We're going to need all sorts of ranges for this. So I'll call this linear 0 duration, and that's going to, so when we are talking about linear movement, we usually, for the duration, we always use milliseconds. So let's just say that you can take anywhere from a minimum of, like, if we put it at 0, shit could get weird. Like, you can't move from point A to point B in 0. You can approach that, but and most of the toys we're working with are shit. So the faster you try to make it move, the closer you might come to breaking the toy or something like that. So let's say that you can have a minimum of 100 milliseconds of movement and a maximum of 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds. So that will be our duration, and we'll want to change the base value to like 1,000 or something like that. So at least a second. And we'll call that linear 0 duration, and it will be for duration, and we'll call it duration now. And then we're going to need 2 more inputs that look a lot like the vibration stuff. So once again, just copy and paste. This is, as I said, probably not the best way to do this, but we're trying to work quick so I can do this video in under multiple hours. Min position, max position, and linear 0 max. Okay, and as you can see, I have, oh, actually you can't see because my webcam is in the way. As you can see, I have made a mess because I don't have line breaks in between my my forms here. So I will just go ahead and put block elements in between each of these. I could also, and then I'll close the damn window because I somehow have trained myself to hit Control W for cut, and that just closes windows. So anyways, Control X, there we go. And we'll get another div, and we'll put this in there. Get our block elements in here. And finally, put this up here. And so this is going to get us, there we go. There is our duration, our min, our max, and we now still need our oscillate checkbox. Actually, that's not even going to need a an ID because actually no, yeah, it will, because we'll need to pull it out in JavaScript. Okay, and there we go. There it is. We have our, I'll go ahead and open a full version of this, and now actually I'll just okay, so I was hoping to show those side by side, but I don't want to have to set up, oh, okay, yeah, I do have display. Hello, OBS. Close that. Move that over. Why does it keep maximizing? And there we go. Okay, so now we can see there was our wireframe, and we've built pretty much the exact same thing. That was easy. Yes, this is all being recorded, and the archive will be up the second that I am done with this stream. So you can just, you'll be able to hit play and watch this later, or you can just go to my YouTube channel, Buttpluggin with qDot, and watch it later. But yeah, all of this will be watchable anytime you want. So, all done there though. Now we can move on to the JavaScript. So currently we have none, and I need to add some. So let's see. Now none of this stuff right here is actually going to be visible when we start. So since I've designed it all, I can comment it out. Okay, and here we are. So this is what we're actually going to see when we start the app. So and we've already set up our button. So now we need to create the start local connection function. So go back over here. Local connection equals base function. Okay, I can't help it. I love my fat arrow notation, but we don't need it here. And actually, we're going to want to keep our buttplug client as a global that will be created whenever we load the page. We're only going to want one buttplug client. We're not going to be reconnecting multiple times or anything like that. So when we create a buttplug client, first off, I guess, yeah, like as I said over here, whenever you load the buttplug script, it's just going to expose a global. Now, Glitch is not going to find this global, so you will get complaints there about errors, but you can expect it's there. Don't worry about it. Like, for instance, if I go back, well, actually, yeah, we've seen this here, and okay, that's not a good way to look at that. Let me... Okay, so see, no errors in loading or anything like that. It did find it. Now then, so we've created, we're creating our buttplug client, which this is the part that talks to the server. The buttplug client and server in this case will both exist within the web browser. So this was all going to exist within this tab. The buttplug server is what's going to handle, for this, the web Bluetooth and web gamepad portions of the... sorry, hold on, turn the webcam back on. There we go. So this is what's going to handle the server is going to handle the toy connection, and the client is the part that we use in our application to access the server. So it makes things way easier to deal with in terms of applications. And I'm also... There we go. Okay, I was on the wrong panel. So what we do when we create a buttplug client is we pass it a name. When we're using what we're going to be calling an embedded connector, this doesn't really matter. There's no one that can actually see this name. But if we were connecting out to another server like Interface Desktop, and here I'll just pull up Interface Desktop super quick here and show you what I mean. So here's Interface Desktop. If I were to connect this out via WebSocket to this, the name Teledildonics 101 client would actually show, it would say status connected to Teledildonics 101 client out here. So that lets you know sometimes when you're connecting to an outside server who the hell is connecting. But that's pretty much it. Not going to do much here. So next up we will... what is it we need to try to do next? So we're also going to want to know where our, like, since we're going to be adding stuff to this device list, we want to store this off, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to live for the lifetime of the page. So we'll call this our container, and we'll go ahead and get it from the document using its element ID. There we go. So it's called device list. We'll get it. So now we will get our container. Now then, so what happens once we click that start scanning button? So a few things need to happen. First off, right now, like I said, we're only going to be in browser. So we need to set up our connection. So const connector. Buttplug embedded. Hell, what's the name of it? Buttplug embedded. Huh. Okay, well, there's the server connector. Okay, well, that's missing from the documentation because there's our browser one. So it is, let me go look at the code real quick. Oh, embedded client connector. So it was pretty easy. So what's happening there is connectors are the way that we tell the buttplug client to connect to the buttplug server. Buttplug embedded client connector comes with a the buttplug embedded client connector comes with a server inside of it already. So this means everything is going to be in the same process, which in a browser means within the same tab. Okay, so since we've got our connector, now we can connect the buttplug client to the server. And the way that looks is this is going to be, this would normally return a promise, but we're just going to await on it. I use async and await heavily. I will mention that now. If you got some questions about it, feel free to ask in the YouTube chat or contact me later. I use async, await, and async IO heavily across all implementations of buttplug. It's kind of just the way that I think. I will say the way that I use it in JavaScript is not completely correct either, because I do mix promises and async await in kind of weird and probably wrong ways. If you do see that somewhere, feel free to throw a bug at me or something like that. But in C# and in Rust and even in the Python implementation does require 3.8. Because I use async IO and data classes there. I use all of that a bunch because buttplug is mostly waiting for shit. Like, Bluetooth is slow, Serial is slow, the USB that most of the USB we're going to talk to is slow, so we're mostly sitting around and fucking waiting. And async is a great way to sit around and wait and know that we're doing so. So the reason that we have to await on a client connect for a connector, like with embedded, not much is going on. We're just going to be shoving stuff together and we're ready to go. However, if we had to connect over a network, if we were using the WebSocket connector and it needed to talk to desktop or something, that can take a while. So that's why we have that awaited there. Okay, so if I go and hit start scanning now, not much is going to happen here, because all we've done is connect to buttplug. There's not really much of a reaction there. I mean, I can actually put console connected, and that will at least show us that something is happening. Yay! So this means that we made it through that await statement, which returned a promise templated on void. So everything worked fine. We are now connected to buttplug. So what do we do once we're connected to buttplug? We will need to start scanning for devices. So scanning. And this is how we scan for devices. All we do is, after we've connected the client, we say start scanning. This is the same across all versions of buttplug. So what start scanning does is just tells all of the device communication managers, which are what handle things like, there's one that handles Bluetooth, one that handles USB, one that handles HID or Serial or whatever else. It goes through all of those and says, okay, go look for your devices now. So with this, it's going to start looking for Bluetooth devices. So if I go back over to my display, I think I can catch this if I am doing my display capture here and shrinking myself down a little bit. So if I go back to our app right here, I hit reload. Who is on right now? Okay, so I hit start scanning. Oh, there you go. You can actually see it. And that is my Lush right there. So we've started scanning, and that brought up the Bluetooth dialog. And actually, let me see if I can make that a little bit larger. I'm not sure if that's going to make the browser UI pop, but okay, once again, hit start scanning. Nope, it's going to be the same size. But that just says LVS-S001, which is the Bluetooth name of the 11th Lush. I could hit pair with it, but I won't really do much right now because I'm not going to actually have any way to know what the device is doing. I haven't run that JavaScript yet. Also, if I start a gamepad up right now and hit a button, you can actually see over here, this is some debug information that I put in. So it also just found the gamepad to make it vibrate. Okay, so that's how far we've gotten. We can now scan for devices. Okay, so what do we do when we've found a device? So start scanning has worked. We saw that it can bring up the list of Bluetooth devices that we know about, and it can find a gamepad. How do we catch that event? So that event is called device added. And we will go ahead and attach this event listener before we do all of our connections and everything else. So this is going to move up here into doing our setup. Actually, we don't even need a connector yet because our client's a global. So I'll go ahead and global setup. Start scanning button. Click event handler. Look at me commenting code on a live stream. Okay, so what do we do when a device has been found? So whenever a device has been found, the buttplug client is going to emit an event. It is going to emit a node event though. So note that our handler here is not going to be add event listener, which is going to be a DOM event, but it's just going to be add listener, which is a polyfilled node event. And our event is called device added. I should say that the buttplug library, the buttplug.js library as it stands right now, does have a lot of magic strings in it that I'm going to be using today. These do need to be enummed somewhere so that they're a little bit easier to access. But for now, unfortunately, this just kind of sucks this way. We're going to need to add an async event handler to that. Because once we add a device, actually, does that need to be async? I don't think we're doing anything async here. So we'll add async once we need it. So this will be whenever we find a new device, console.log device.name. So whenever we find a new device, we will say the name of it. Actually, let's go ahead and say connected. And similarly, when a device is disconnected, we get a device removed event. So let's go ahead and show how this works. Device name removed. So in this device that you're getting right here, this, if I were writing TypeScript right now, would be a buttplug client device type. So we can come over here to our documentation real quick and go back to that buttplug client device. So our constructor, you don't need to worry about. You will never create a buttplug client device. That's always created by the API for you. What's going to be important here are these accessors. So we've got a getter that tells us about a few things about the device. There's allowed messages, which this is messages is basically the functionality the device provides. So for like the Lush, it's going to say that it takes vibrate CMD or something like that. The index is the index of the device on the server. Once again, I already talked about that. That's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, counting upward. And then the name of the device is a human readable name. So when we are filling out this part, that's where we get this from. So that's what we care about right now, are just those three accessors. So we're already using the name here, and we're using it in a template string with backticks, so we can just use the device right there. So let's go back over here and bring up the display, start scanning again. We found our Levin's device, and if we pair and we wait a sec, there we go. We found our, if anyone in the chat knows how to increase these, oh hey, okay, it's the same button. There you go. So now you can actually see my console right there. And you can see that we've found the Levent's Lush, and we also found my Xbox 360 gamepad, because they are both sitting right here, and, okay, they're both sitting off camera right now. There we go. Those are both on right now, and you can see like the Lush is always full on with its light when it's connected to Bluetooth. So coming back to this, okay. So we now can see whenever we have a device added. Oh yeah, device removed too. So if I go ahead and just turn the Lush off, like just hold the power button, we should, okay, it's off now, and in a second we should see that it disconnected in our dialog. There we go. Okay. Bluetooth disconnect can sometimes take a while through the browser. Web Bluetooth is slow. Bluetooth LE itself in sex toys is also kind of slow. We'll get to some issues with that later, but yeah, so it could be like you turn off a device or something, and it can take your UI multiple seconds to update. That's not your fault. It's just Bluetooth is difficult and weird to do in a cross-platform way, and browsers are difficult and weird software. So don't think that's your fault. Web Bluetooth, it's still pretty handy though. Okay, so we found devices. What do we want to do once we know that we've found a device or that the device has been removed? So whenever we find a device, looking at our Figma here again, we want to create this little box. And we want to create this little box with whatever these features that we know it has are going to be. So we'll go ahead and leave our printout here just because that's a nice thing to have. And we're going to need to, first off, we want to create our title. So we're going to want to, well, actually, first we're going to want to create a div. Let's go back to our HTML, and let's just uncomment what we're trying to look like here. So we want to create this. And this part we'll need to do programmatically because we're going to have to figure out, does this device vibrate? Does this device rotate? So on and so forth. This part we can set up when we make the device. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a div. And within that, we'll create a title. And our device titles in our HTML will be the device name. And in the end, we will want to add this to our container div. So if I, okay, well, start scanning doesn't work right there, so I do have to come back over here. But now, if I turn my Lush back on, and, well, okay, there we go, parrot, and it connected, but my container is not coming up. Oh, did I? Okay, what did I forget to do? Oh, there it is. Oh, that's the, wait, no, that's the one that I already made. Oh, okay, so there's my other, for forgot to append my title to the device div. There we go. Okay. Now then, if I do that and find that and hit pair, look at that. We have our title. So we are on our way to creating our usable block here. So now then, we need to figure out, does this device vibrate? Let's just start with vibration. Vibration is by far the simplest thing we do. So if this device vibrates, we want to create a device vibration block. What we're going to do here is if allowed messages, so that and if we look at our type here, so allowed messages, it is an array of strings. Like I said, we have a lot of just magic strings hanging out here, so you just can't trust me on this one. So if it includes a string called vibrate CMD, then so we know that if vibrate CMD is in the allowed messages list, that means that the device vibrates. So at that point, we want to do something called, let's go ahead and create a function for this called create vibrate controller, or vibration controller. We will need to, and we want to do everything in there. So we will need to pass it the device div, because we're going to make some UI in there that we want to attach to the device controller div, and then we'll need to pass the device itself, because this is going to run JavaScript on that device. So go back up here, function vibration controller, device div, device. Okay, so here is our function. In this, we're gonna want to create, and you know what? I just realized, like, I could const all of these lets. I'm not really changing anything there. So just in case anyone was getting all angry about that, there you go. Anyways, so I want to const control div, and we'll create yet another div to work in here, just because it gives us a nice wrapper to build our stuff in. And that's the div we are going to want to return for this thing to attach. Or actually, wait, we don't need to return anything, because we can device div dot append child control div. So go. Anyway, and also for anyone that's joined since I last said it, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Chat people, feel free to talk amongst yourselves or whatever else while I sit here and write code. Or once again, if you have any questions, recommendations, things like that, feel free to throw them out at me, and I might actually pay attention to them if I can. Okay, so we are creating this little vibrate block down here in S. We're going to need our title, we're going to need our range slider, and we're going to need our label. Now the nice thing is, I already built those over here. So this is the control div. This is exactly what I was creating. Now I could go through and do all of that, all of the work to do document create element and everything else, or I can do this. This is the cheap and easy way. Create a template string, and the only thing that we need to change in here is this 0. Like I said earlier, this needs to be the device index. So I can just call this device.index. Okay, and now we have our, okay, so that's complaining, control Oh, huh. Control div. Now, if I go back over my HTML and comment out my pre-written block again, because that's going to get cluttered now. And besides, we've already done it. And then I should be able to go over here, switch off to display, start scanning, find my Lush again, and okay, look at that. Now we have our full setup, and this was done by finding the device, and we know it vibrates, so now we have our vibration range slider. The last thing we need to do is actually hook up that slider to the toy controls. So how do we do that? We go back over to our JavaScript here, and we will need to create a okay, so we have our slider. We're gonna want to actually pull that out because we need to set an event listener on it. That's, we want to call that actually, since I use that vibrate template string in multiple places, let's just call this control ID. And actually I need to surround that. Okay, so now I can just say get the div of or get the ID of control ID. That'll hand us back our slider element, and we can add an event listener out here. So, I mean, there's two ways we could do this. I could also set the event listener in the HTML. Actually, I'll go ahead and do that. Then I'll save us even more things. So function run vibration. Oh, except that I'm not going to have the device in scope at that point. So can't do that actually. Never mind. Event listener. So since we have a DOM object, we actually need to use that event listener this time. Range changes on input, or range fires input whenever it's changed. So, and this will need to actually be an async function, because all we have to do here is device, and then we're going to call send vibrate CMD. So this right here. As we can see, this takes either a single number or an array of numbers, and it returns a promise with a void type in it. So the reason this takes a number or an array of numbers, if we look at the different toys here, so this has one vibrator in it, this has two. For this one, I can just send a single number. There's only one motor to control. If I wanted to control both of these motors and have them run at different speeds, I could do that in a single command by sending an array with two values in it, each one of which is different. However, if I send the edge just a single number, it'll set both of those motors to that number too. So there's the flexibility of typing in JavaScript gives you the maximum amount of flexibility for the functionality that you can use here. That can get kind of confusing at times, but hopefully it will make sense. For this, I'm not actually going to go into single motor, how we detect single motors or numbers of motors right now. I'm going to assume everything just has one motor because, once again, trying to keep this simple. So we will call send vibrate CMD, and the value we want is going to be the value of our slider. So we'll have slider.value. Now the problem is going to be, and what I should really write some comments for, or documentation for, if we go over to the buttplug spec, and we'll look at this over here. Oh yeah, so I had forgotten to change to my web browser first. So here's the code I just wrote. So right now we are awaiting device send vibrate command, and we'll send it slider value. But the thing is, that's going to be a number between 0 and 100. However, if we look at what vibrate command actually is, here we go. This is the documentation for vibrate command. So this is what's actually getting sent to the server when we call send vibrate command. It takes an ID, which the library handles for you, the index, which the library handles for you. So this is what you're filling in right now, are these vibration speeds. Index of motor vibration, that's like if you send an array, this turns it into that. However, our vibration speed is of the range of 0 to 1 as a double. We can't send a number between 0 and 100. We need to turn that into a number from 0 to 1. So if I do this right now, I'll just show you what happens because it's actually a fairly confusing error that I need to fix. So we're going to find the lush real quick, and then if I set that, yeah, send vibrate command can only take numbers or an array of numbers. However, you did just send it a number. It's just a number that's out of range. So if we go back over here and we divide by 100.0, now let's try this again. We find our lush, and that's it. It's vibrating. You can actually see it from the camera right here. There it goes. Yay! So we have made the basicest of basic sex toy control applications here, and a grand total of 43 plus, well, a whole bunch of fucking template. 70, about 70 lines of code. Not bad between HTML and JavaScript. And it could be even less too. I could code golf this, I'm sure, but I would like it to actually be clear. So I keep forgetting to switch windows. Okay, so back to our code. So our vibration is done here. We can just now move on to our rotation. And rotation, the nice thing about it is it's going to look a lot like vibration. So first off, we will change to, instead of looking for vibrate CMD, we will look for rotate CMD. And then we will do a create rotation controller function. And for this, we're just going to copy pasta a whole bunch of stuff. So we will just call this rotation controller. Rotate. And then we're going to change this to look like what our template in the index looked like. So we want to have our range going from -100 to 100, value of 0, so on and so forth. And we're definitely going to want to change our control ID to be rotate instead of vibrate. And we want to change our label here too. So, okay. And then finally, we aren't sending vibrate anymore, we're sending rotate. Now, once again, let's go look at our documentation here. What does send a rotate command take? Send rotate command takes, once again, so it's actually kind of weird here. You can send a number and a Boolean, or you can send an array of numbers and Booleans. So our number is the speed of rotation, and our Boolean is whether it should be going clockwise or not. When we do the development reversing on these toys, we'll like sit there and figure out, okay, which command sends it clockwise. And so if you send true to clockwise, and there's going to be interesting questions too, of like, was I looking at the toy this way or this way, which we don't actually specify, but we haven't had a lot of complaints about, you said it was going to turn clockwise, and it turned counterclockwise, and now I can't get off. So, anyways, true means one direction, false means another. On a device with multiple rotators, which I can't remember if any of those actually exist, but we try to plan ahead. You can send arrays of speeds and clockwise or counterclockwise. So now then, we've already got our speed, but remember, our value is now between negative 100 and 100. So first off, we're going to need to take the absolute value of that speed to make sure that we don't send a negative number over. And then whether we're clockwise or not, we can just say if the slider value is less than 0. So we can just do a Boolean test there, and that will handle sending over the yes, it's going one direction or it's going another. And that's it. I believe if we go over to our test now, and if I turn on the actually, let me see if I can go ahead and just add the iOS camera to this scene. So yeah, I can. Okay, but not over the stuff that's telling people about things. Okay, here we go. So now if I hit start scanning, and we can see there is our Nora, and it should come up right there. Okay, so now we have two different things that we can do. We can vibrate or we can rotate. And if I do vibration, well, you can hear it, you can't really see it. And if we rotate, there it goes, it's rotating. And if I go the other direction, oh yeah, I forgot this actually. So the Nora has this weird issue where if I rotate it the other direction, it actually turns itself off for some reason. That's a bug in our library. So let's go ahead, ignore that, and also ignore the fact that Chrome has decided to actually lock up for the moment. There's some times where toys have been disconnecting in Windows that it has caused lockups. I need to file this with the Chrome team to get fixed. Okay, it's back. Levin's Nora was removed, but it didn't remove this block yet, so that's something else we'll need to go do. But let's go ahead and just reload for right now. And I'm going to try, here is the VORs. We'll find it. And this will come up. Here we go. Okay, so you can see now it's going one direction, and then it goes the other. There we go. Now, you might have noticed this popped up over here, this error of GAT operation already in progress. Like I said, Bluetooth is slow. The timing of Bluetooth LE packets can be anywhere from 25 to 250 milliseconds, which is a serious amount of time. And the thing is, when you're dragging the slider around, you're sending commands way faster. Like if you watch, like 586 errors. Like this was moving, but there was a whole bunch of time where it was like, no, I can't send something else. I'm already sending one thing. And you get an error back that tells you, okay, you're going to have to resend that later or something like that. This is something we're working on handling in the library. There is, once again, a few bugs around that, but basically if you just make sure you only send at about 10 to 20 hertz, so every 50 to 100 milliseconds, you should normally be okay, and none of these toys are high fidelity enough that the user is going to notice too much. However, we should handle that in the library for you. That's something I do know about and need to take care of. But if you are just raring to go right now, note that that is an issue. Okay, back to our code because we are 2/3 of the way there. We have our vibration, we have our rotation, now we need our linear. this is the part that sucks, because linear takes so many goddamn sliders. So one of the other things we can do here is make sure that when a device disconnects, before we get to linear, when a device disconnects, we make sure that it disappears from the list. So when we create a device div, we can just call it device div dot. Or actually, we don't even need to call it anything, because we have it. We have what it is right here. So we can just say whenever a device is removed, we add it to the container. Now we can just call container dot remove child device div. And oh, I created that. Okay, I am going to need to give it an ID, because I forgot that those are two different event handlers. So device div.id equals device dash. Okay, so now we have a device ID. And we know that to be able to call device removed on a device, we already have to have called device added. So we can assume with some amount of certainty that this div is going to be there, and then we can just find the div and remove it. So let's go ahead and check that real quick. So if I go ahead and pair my voice turned off right as I was getting over here. Okay, there we go. It came up. It came up twice, actually. Okay. There we go. Now if I turn the voice off, we wait for a second, and it's going to take a sec to figure that out, and it may lock up for a sec. Yeah, now it's... This locking up thing is a little weird and kind of worrisome, but once it comes back, which it will here in a second, I hope. Is Chrome going to crash? Nope. Okay, Chrome came back, and now our div block is gone. So there we go. Now when a device is removed, it's actually removed from the UI too. So finally, if device.allowed messages.includes linear CMD, create linear controller device div device. Okay, this one's gonna suck. So we can still copy pasta like fucking crazy here. And we'll call this create linear controller, and we'll make our linear ID, and we'll send a linear command, but that's going to have to be different. Okay, so now we need to look at our Figma again. So we need to create a duration, a min, a max, and an oscillate. That's not too bad. Actually, we've already created that. I can just copy it out of this. So what we want to do is copy all of that. And chuck it right in here. Oh, I didn't copy the header, but whatever. Linear. Okay. So this is already all done. I miss Emacs so much right now. So here is our UI for all of this. We're going to need to substitute in our control ID. Instead of just using linear 0. Okay, that handles all of that, and we are there. Okay, so, and then so we will start our oscillate. So now the one question is going to be, how do we handle our oscillation? Because instead of just saying, set this vibration to go at this speed, we're going to have to say, go to this position, and then go back to this position, and then go to this position again, so on and so forth, until the oscillate box is turned off, or the oscillate checkbox is unchecked. So, so we're going to need to, this is not going to actually work for us. We're going to need to get a checkbox. And our checkbox is named control ID dash oscillate, because it's, as we see right there. And then event listener. So checkboxes use click to get, and we don't care whether it's checked or not at that point. We just, anytime it's clicked, we want to run this. So, and honestly, we're going to want to run this as a set timeout. It needs to be its own function. This is going to be kind of the weird part here. To get this to repeat, we'll be using set timeout. I could also use, say, an async wait timer or something like that, but I'm going to go the old school way and just throw it out to the event loop every time. So we need to specify which direction we're going, and so we'll say this will be a Boolean of, if we want to move to the maximum position, this will be true, otherwise it'll be false. And that means that we can just change that from true to false to true to false between each call, and it will move us back and forth. So let's think about this. So we want to say that if our checkbox is checked, we want to call our run function, or run oscillate. I should call that something a little bit more obvious. Run oscillate, and we'll just say it's always going to max when we start. This may mean that it starts a little, like if it's already at the max position, it'll just sit there. We don't really care. This is close enough for right now. Wow, I've got 20 minutes left to get this done in under 2 hours. Okay. Live coding is hard. So what do we need to do once we are here? So what we know we want to happen is run oscillate needs to happen in a loop, and it needs to happen in a loop from the main JavaScript event loop, which means we want to call set timeout at the end to call ourselves again. Run oscillate, not go to max. So every time we'll flip the value of the direction we're going, and we always want to wait for the amount of time that we think the movement is going to happen, which is going to be the value of our duration slider. So we need to get duration slider element ID. As you for anyone that is used to working in other frameworks, you may have forgotten how verbose just regular old JavaScript and HTML is, and this will make you appreciate that once again. So duration slider dot value. So what's going to happen there is what we're saying here. Whenever the checkbox is clicked, if it is checked, so if we are turning it into a checked state, we want to call run oscillate with true. We'll call run oscillate with true. Right now, all we do is we get how long we're supposed to be waiting, and then we set a timeout to call us with the opposite after that amount of time. So what that's going to look like with, say, the flashlight launch, you're going to point A to point B. Let's say you just happen to start at point A and you're going to point B. You know that it's going to take hopefully the duration you've told it to get to point B. We have no feedback from that hardware. That hardware will not tell you when it actually got to point B because Kiryu has no fucking clue what they are doing with engineering. Most sex toys do not actually have closed loop control, which is where the hardware tells you where it is as it's getting there. Most of it is open loop control, which means you fucking guess. So obviously not my favorite of control schemes, but here we are. So we are just going to assume that by the end of that time, we're ready to move back to where we started. So there we go. Now the question is going to be, though, like, this will run forever now. This will just keep going and going and going. And if we've turned off oscillate, how do we make this stop happening? So what's going to happen there is we can do the same check that we do in the event handler, where we say if the checkbox isn't checked, fucking bail, just leave. So at that point, we don't call set timeout or anything anymore. We won't be running in a loop anymore. We will just say, okay, we're done now. No more oscillation. And then when the checkbox is checked again, this will run again. This won't return, and we'll be back in our loop. So that's how we handle our oscillation loop. So now that we've handled our oscillation, how the loop is going to run, how do we actually move the device? So we need to get all of our values out of our sliders. So we'll go with a min slider. Max slider is going to be the exact same thing. And honestly, I could probably call all of this outside of this too. None of this is going to change. So I can clean up the inside of our loop a little bit. Okay, so now we have all, like, we'll have, anytime we call value on these, we'll have the min and max value we want to move to. So, now we want to say, which direction are we going? Are we going to the maximum? And so if we are going to the maximum, we want to linear CMD, and we want to get our max slider value. And of course, that's going to be between 0 and 100. Buttplug takes things between 0 and 1, so we have to convert that. And then we'll need to get our time slider value. And this, or sorry, not time slider, duration slider. Okay, and then we can do that for min. And that's it. That's all we have to do. So because since we're going to be flipping this back and forth down here by using the not operator, we'll be going between the min and max values. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this working with the flashlight launch. Get this out of the way. Turn our camera back on here. Now, the one thing about the Fleshlight launch is that it is finicky as hell under Web Bluetooth. I don't know why, and this is on multiple platforms. There is something about the Bluetooth LE implementation in the Fleshlight launch that does not play well with Web Bluetooth. It's pretty stable when you're using native Buttplug under Interface Desktop on Mac, Linux, or Windows, and it tends to work pretty okay on Android. iOS, I can't remember, but whenever you're using desktop web Bluetooth, though, this can be somewhat of a fight. So let's see if I can get this to work. Let me change over to this display right here and add my iOS scene. Just so you can actually see me trying to add the device and everything, too. Or, well, I guess web browser works. That should be okay. Okay, start scanning. You won't be able to see the Bluetooth scanning, but whatever. Okay, so, yep, there we go. This network error, connection failed for unknown reason. So as you can see, it's blue. Like, it actually, Web Bluetooth connected to the launch, but for some reason, it rejects in the browser. I don't know why. This is outside of Buttplug. This is an actual browser bug. Oh, hey, look, it actually worked. Okay, like I had to try this like 6 or 7 times last night to get it to work. So glad to see that happen. Anyways, so here we go. This is we have our duration, our min position, our max position, and our oscillate. So let's change our min and max position here, and then let's hit oscillate. Oh no, I screwed something up. Okay. So when it says should be a number, that usually means I missed something. Like I didn't change something. We know this is a number. We've already done this before. So the thing about range is I believe it actually returns its value as a string. So if we go to the developer site, yeah, value attribute contains a DOM string. So I need to convert this to an integer. The nice thing is, if you've seen the JS What video, you know that type coercion is something that JS does incredibly something. You can convert types in about 1 million different ways. So I could probably do an intcast or a parseint or something here, like parseint. I've forgotten how parseint works. Parseint takes the radix and yeah, okay. Parseint, and let's call it 10 because we're doing base 10 radix. If you want to be fancy, you could also do some crap like that. These will work the same way. But I'll be correct and use parseint. And okay, so now we have to hope that we can actually connect to the launch again. Let's give this a shot. Waiting for it to show up on the pairing dialog. Okay, it's not going to happen. Okay, there we go. It's going to connect. Oh, look at my luck today. Okay, and there's this kind of interesting problem where if you turn on a device while this thing is scanning, it will find it twice for some reason. I'm not real sure about that. So anyways, if I change this now, it's moving. Okay, so let me see if you can actually oh fuck it, I'll just go get a flashlight real quick. Hold on. Okay, got a flashlight. And my monitors back on. Okay. So let's stop oscillating. Get our flashlight in here. And now, whoop. God damn it, I fucking hate this. Yeah. There we go. If I hit oscillate again, look at that. You can actually see the flashlight oscillating. And one of the cool parts about this is since over in our code over here, we are reading the value whenever this runs. We can change this in real time. And you might have also noticed this slowed down when I changed tabs. That's going to be one of the issues with browsers. Whenever you background a tab, it does slow down the processing. So if you're doing an oscillation or something like that, it may actually slow down. Web browsers are complicated things. So anyways, if I change the duration here, see, now it's going much faster. Okay, so there we go. And I can change, like, maybe it should, like, go all the way out or something like that. Or maybe it should just stay out and just go small bits. There you go. So that's it. This is our toy control app. We can vibrate stuff, we can rotate stuff, we can stroke with stuff. That's kind of the functionality right now. A lot of the work that I spend on this is mostly getting the internals of all of this to line up, figuring out all the toy protocols, things like that. But the thing is, now people that have one of the 100 and some toys that we support, which I can show you here. There's a site, IOST Index, that shows all of the different sex toys that are out there that are computer controlled. So this is like the list of everything that works with Buttplug right now. It's 100 and some, 126 devices. And that's just because that's the ones that are available. If I turn them off to ones that are no longer manufactured but we still work with, 139 devices. So most of those should work with our little app here. Just out of the box, because that's what Buttplug takes care of for you. Yeah, that is it. An hour and 53 minutes. I managed to do this in under 2 hours. I am so proud of myself. So you can. Obviously, this app is open source because I literally typed the source in front of you, and at least one of the people has been sitting here watching as I typed it. This little happy face right here. Hello, Anonymous. But you can also, the nice thing about Glitch is you can fork this. So if you have, like, you all have this URL and stuff now, the project is open, so you can, this remix project button right here, you can just go click this and it will copy it over to your Glitch account and you can play with this to your heart's content. Now, what I should also show you that I mentioned at the beginning is that this works with gamepads, but it's a little weird. Before last night, the only thing that worked with Buttplug.js was Bluetooth toys. That was the only thing I ever had to search for. And Bluetooth is a little odd because it has to bring up that dialogue and you can only connect one at a time. I still want to keep that there, but I wanted this gamepad control stuff in too. So if we go back over to our sample app and we hit start scanning again, and this time if I bring up the gamepad, now I'm going to need to like hit a button. And if you do want to try this and you just want to do it with the gamepad, if you don't have a toy or something like that, mainly I just recommend bring up your developer console and look for those messages. Oh, damn it. Bring up your developer console and look for those messages. Is my battery going dead? And now my gamepad battery is dead. So that's some timing. So I'm just going to talk while I sit here and switch out my gamepad batteries. Anyways, due to the way that gamepad works, it will only find a gamepad if you have hit a button on it. Otherwise, like, it doesn't want to like just pick up random gamepads that are sitting on your desk not doing anything. So that's why it requires that discovery step. And if I try this again, just hit reload here, turn this on, hit start scanning, and then hit a button. There we go. So I'm gonna hit cancel. Well, here, if I change the display thing here, oh well, yeah. So I just hit cancel, but we still have our gamepad here. Oh, that's a little weird. Let's try that again. Start scanning, hit a button, index 0, so that's our 0. There we go. Okay. So, and now the gamepad is vibrating. So you can even use a gamepad with this. And the thing is, if you can make your gamepad vibrate, then if someone with a vibrating sex toy comes in and wants to use your app, they can use that, but all you've tested it with is your gamepad. Someone on the YouTube channel just asked, can this be used with porn? Yes, it can. So if you once this stream is done, which it should be in about the next 5 minutes, if you go to my YouTube channel, Buttpluggin with qDot, there is a video that shows how that, the sex toy video sync overview. That is a 20-minute overview of how movie sync works. So that is a similar interface to what I just showed you. Like, it's using the same code. It uses Buttplug and whatnot. But instead of you sitting there with the slider and moving the slider around to control the toy, there's like a script that works with a video that can control the toy. We may actually build something like that in one of my later videos coming up soon. Anyways, that is pretty much it for today. I'm going to call this done because my voice is starting to fail. But I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope it's useful. Please take this app on Glitch, remix it, have fun. Go build a better version of it. It won't take much. I'm sure there's bugs in there too. If you find them, fix them, tell me. There's a good chance I'll also throw this on GitHub too, if people actually want to do it in Git versus just on Glitch. Because this is literally just 2 files. All you need is the HTML and the JavaScript. You don't actually even really need the style file. So yeah, part 4 is going to look almost exactly like this. So what we're going to do is we'll take our control frames right here, and we are going to basically create copies of them, move them over here, and then like this will be our local control, and this will be our remote. And so what's going to happen there is in the background, someone else will be connected to this, and they can control, like, their local is your remote, your local is their remote, and you'll be able to basically play with each other's sliders. That is going to be a very basic Teledildonics app. Now, so there's not going to be a lot of UI work there, other than getting people matched up together. But the network backend of getting WebRTC and WebSockets working, that's going to take some work. So I've got to come up with how to do that and figure out how to make it vaguely secure and everything else. But it'll be done on Glitch once again. All of it will be open source. I'll also show how to connect outward to Interface Desktop at that point. Well, we'll see how long all that takes. But because you should be able to, like, this app should be usable in Firefox too with Interface Desktop. It just needs to change the connector type. And honestly, if you really want to use Firefox, you would just do connector equals new buttplug browser WebSocket client connector, and you would want to go to WSS localhost 12345. Of course, because it's Firefox, you're going to have to use WSS, which means you'll have to use a self-signed cert in Interface Desktop and whatnot. And I realize I am throwing out a whole bunch of technical information very quick, but I just ticked over 2 hours and I want this done. Um, so that's literally the only line you need to change to get this working with Firefox and Firefox and Interface Desktop. One line. That's it. Everything else works the same. And once you hit start scanning too, at that point you can also say stop scanning, but I don't have a button for that because this was browser only. So there's a few differences, but it's not a huge deal. It's a few lines of code, and if you're really interested in it and really do want to do that, feel free to get in contact with me, or I might make a follow-up video later or something. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to go have some dinner. I will be posting on Twitter, Patreon, and every other social media site on Earth once I figure out when part 4 is going to happen. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, keep butt plugging.